Hey y'all, and welcome to PolitiBrawl. My name is Brian, and Senator Kennedy just drops a bomb on this unsuspecting witness, and all because she refuses to call out literal terrorists. Let's dive in.
According to your website, you're also, I'm going to quote here, a longtime Democratic Party activist who served as a member of the 2016 Democratic National Convention's Platform Standing Committee, close quote. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. You support Hamas, do you not?
Senator, oddly enough, I'm going to say thank you for that question because it demonstrates the purpose of our hearing today in a very effective way.
Let's start first with a yes or no.
Hamas is a foreign terrorist organization that I do not support, but you asking the executive director of the Arab American Institute that question very much puts the focus on the issue of hate in our country.
Well, I got your answer, and I appreciate it. What is the, you support Hezbollah too, don't you?
Again, I find this line of questioning extraordinarily disappointing,
Is that a
Senator.
no?
That
Or
you
a
have
yes?
you have Arab American constituents that you represent in your great state.
Yes, ma'am, I understand that, but my time's limited, and I apologize, but is that a yes or a no?
A yes or no question to do I support Hezbollah? The answer is I don't support violence, whether it's Hezbollah, Hamas, or any other entity that invokes it.
You can't
So
bring
no,
yourself to say no, can you?
No, I can say no. I can say yes.
But
What
you
I can
haven't.
say is
You just
your
can't
line
make
of
yourself
questioning.
do it. Do you
Senator.
support or oppose Iran and their hatred of Jews?
Again, I'm going to emphasize Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, none of them is going to, this
You
discussion.
can't bring yourself to say no, can
Sir,
you?
I don't support.
It's real simple.
Excuse me. I'm going to,
Ian,
if I may, as a Muslim woman, sir, I'm going to tell you I do not support Iran. But what I will tell you is that this conversation.
I'm running out of time. I'm
Okay.
sorry. You called our decision to cut funding. You called our decision to cut fund. Well, first, what's the United Nations Relief and Works Agency?
It's UNRWA, which is
Yeah.
the institution that exists to provide services and aid to the nearly 6 million Palestinian refugees.
And you called our decision to cut funding for them, quote, an incredible moral failure, close quote.
That is absolutely correct. But again, I would suggest that conversation is about foreign policy.
We did that because 9 UNRWA staff members were fired for actually helping Hamas on October 7th. Isn't that the case?
I don't believe that that's correct in terms
Let
of.
me ask you one more time. You support Hamas, don't you? You
Sir.
support UNRWA and Hamas, don't you?
Sir,
Please.
I think it's exceptionally disappointing that you're looking at an Arab American witness before you and saying you support Hamas.
You know what's disappointing to me?
I do not support
you can't
Hamas.
Bring yourself
I do
to
not
say
support Hamas
You don't
or
support UNRWA. You don't support Hamas. You don't.
I was very
support
clear in my support for
Hezbollah,
UNRWA.
and you don't
I
support Iran.
oppose-
You should hide your head in a bag.
I mean, he's not wrong. She refused to call out literal terrorist organizations. She did at the very beginning say that she didn't support Hamas, but the moment one of her fellow organizations ended up getting caught with its hand in the cookie jar with people literally helping out the Hamas terrorists and on October 7th, and she refuses to call them out. You could tell by the look in her face, you could tell by her body language that she knew this question was coming, and she didn't have a good answer for it. Mainly because when you are appearing before Congress, it is best not to perjure yourself. And that whole idea of perjury, the idea of bearing false witness, that's going to be a huge problem later on down the road. Now, as it turns out, apparently, most people in Congress can say whatever they want to, even when they get brought forth and receive a summons. But we don't often really charge people for perjury when they talk to Congress. And there's sort of a reason for that, and that's because some people can't afford to tell the truth, and that's a big reason why when Christopher Wray and some CIA agents get brought forth before a committee in Congress, They don't typically tell the entire truth because that would be even more damaging. So that's kind of the tit for tat where you know that this is wrong, you know that this is a problem, but you don't do anything about it. Because remember, this is Congress, everything's a little bit slimy in the swamp up in DC. Even though up on Capitol Hill, it's literally away from the downward slope into the literal swamp of the Potomac River. Let's be honest, things get a little bit slimy here and there. And so, Senator Kennedy, right here at the end, tells her she should hide her head in a bag. I think that's one of the most appropriate ways to put it, because we have seen time and time again, people who have been captured by Hamas and Hezbollah have their heads quite literally put in a bag while they're talking on television. And if you remember what happened when ISIS started capturing and torturing people, yeah, I think that's a very apt description, because deep down she can't. This woman, by the way, her name is Maya Berry, and she thinks that it is okay to lend her support from her organization to the Palestinians, and on its face, that's a good idea. Okay, giving people the ability to have humanitarian aid, that's a good thing. The Red Cross, good thing. Having first aid kits, good thing. Except what happens in nearly every single one of these cases is that the people try to beat Hamas to the punch because Hamas will take it, and instead of giving it back to their own people, they keep it for their own soldiers. Okay? It is an ugly thing to see, and it happens time and time and time again. And instead of fixing that problem, this woman is out here screaming, "You need to give us more money. More money is going to solve the problem." Please. In an era now when we're looking at USAID and finding massive amounts of not just waste, but fraud, abuse, and spending on the most frivolous things that do nothing to further US interests or humanitarian goals, yeah, it's time that we start looking at every single cent that we send overseas. It is time that we look at every single cent that's spent here at home. It is time to even audit the national parks if necessary. Okay? That's how bad things have gotten. Remember, we are $37 trillion in debt, and we are now clutching our pearls at the very thought that maybe we should cut back on some funding here and there? How awful. $37 trillion in debt, folks. That's nothing to sneeze at. That is something that I will be paying off for the rest of my life, if I am so unfortunate. My children will. My grandchildren will probably be doing the same thing. We are in a debt crisis, and that bubble is eventually going to burst. And this isn't just an American thing. This is happening all over the globe. What happens when this bubble bursts? Who's going to be prepared for it? The whole point and purpose of cutting funding like this is not to say screw you to other countries and other people who desperately do need humanitarian aid, but their own governments refuse to help them in this regard. No, that's not what this is about. This is about trying to be solvent for the first time since the 90s. Remember when Newt Gingrich and Bill Clinton were at each other's throats, and then they eventually came forward with some pretty darn good proposals that would solve a whole lot of our welfare crisis? I think we can do that again. And it's going to start by cutting funding like to the organizations that Maya Berry thinks that is so integral to saving lives, when the reality is it is misallocated, and then once the funds actually get there, the government of Hamas refuses to give it back to the people who need it the most. And she can't even bring herself to properly call out these terrorist organizations? Give me an absolute break. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on PolitiBrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Until then, y'all have a good one.